Without pushing too much of the Wal-Mart Kool-Aid down everybody's throat, what surprised me most about coming to Wal-Mart is they've really been caring about the communities in times of disaster since they opened their first store in 1962. And it surprised me the amount of commitment, not only that our executive leadership has with building resiliency into our own business model, but also the commitment they have to supporting the communities we serve. Now, we all know, it doesn't matter if you're here representing the public sector or the private sector today, all disasters are political. Now, no disaster conforms to the political boundaries that we've set, but all disasters have to work within the rules, regulations, and policies that we have in our country. And now, real quick, on the right side of the slide is a basic image of where all the Walmart stores are located, Walmart and Sam's Club. We have about 4,200 facilities in this country, almost 5,000, including our corporate facilities. So we truly have a large footprint. And when we talk about medium to large size disasters, we're talking typically a multi-jurisdictional, multi-state, multi-region response to support our impacted facilities. And what you see on the right side of the screen is, in those red triangles, those are our, what we call disaster distribution centers. And these are distribution centers that have space on their floor with added resources and assets that we have identified to be necessary to pump into our supply chain to backfill and respond to the demand within the communities being impacted by disaster. Now, where our challenges come in is to have the efficient and effective supply chain that Walmart's known for. We have to strategically place these types of distribution centers. And we have a 250-mile radius that each distribution center has to respond to these types of disasters. And these respond to multiple states, counties, parishes, regions. And we work closely and we build public-private partnerships for this exact reasons to overcome some of these challenges. And the challenges that we have listed on the bottom of this slide really speak to what we've been doing since before Hurricane Katrina. And we've made huge strides as partners, but we need to continue to push the needle. And when we talk about pushing the needle and some of these areas that we still continue to need to build understanding, when I work with my colleagues in the intelligence sharing space for Walmart, one of their big challenges they confront with on a regular basis is a bi-directional sharing of intelligence. And what that basically means is the sharing of intelligence between public entities and the private sector. And the National Infrastructure Advisory Council recently pushed out a survey that found the sharing between state and federal partners has grown immensely in the last few years. But the sharing between the public side and the private side is described as immature. And the number one reason that they noted in this survey was because of the lack of trust. And there's three criteria that we've listed on the slide. The first being speaking to just the multiplicity of agencies, the regulations, policies, and the decentralized sharing of this information. And this goes for both the public and the private side. Connecting the dots between where this intelligence is being gathered, being filtered through, and who we're sharing, and where our connecting pieces really lie, and being able to be fully transparent and let agencies that you may not actually know need this intelligence, much like a lot of agencies don't understand why we might need some intelligence. The second, misunderstandings and unfamiliarities. And I have a quick anecdote. I had the opportunity to be a private sector representative for the Federal Emergency Management Agency in a rotation they have out at their headquarters. And on my first day, on some onboarding information, they handed me about a 3-inch thick book of acronyms. And they said, go home tonight, learn these acronyms so you can speak fluently and understand when you're in briefings and when you're working with different groups. And I thought, this might be one of the biggest learnings I had, was that they have a 3-inch thick book just to understand each other. How are we going to understand bridging that gap between the public and the private sides? And lastly, and this one really speaks about trust. And what the NIAC really found was the lack of trust. And it's when we share intelligence and when we collect this information and this information sharing that we find so extremely necessary, and we've, again, made great strides during natural disasters. We collect this information, but we want to make sure we trust the partners we share it with. We want to make sure we continue to grow and support that trust that we have with our customers. So building that trust is so important. And again, we do this through public-private partnerships, partnering with the public sector, building those relationships, and leveraging those relationships when needed. Now, when we speak of public-private partnerships, Wal-Mart is a leader in this space. And one of the great things before I get to a lot of what's on the slide is, and it speaks to Massachusetts. During last year's winter storms, we had a great an individual from our regional team that went to the MEMA Emergency Operations Center, and they participated in their private sector liaison program, and they were able to be our eyes and ears in the EOC. They were able to communicate and coordinate things that are necessary, not just for Wal-Mart, but for the private sector at large. And that speaks to a lot of those areas that were on that second slide, the regulations, the overweight permitting that you need for moving emergency generators into areas, the regulations to move products that might not have be purchased or acquired to be sold in a specific state, but they're needed to respond to a disaster for disaster survivors that have the necessary resources. Now, Wal-Mart manages these partnerships at all levels, federal, state, local, and we do so to continue to demonstrate our commitment to the communities before, during, and after. We look at assisting the communities for short-term recovery, but we're also heavily engaged on working with communities during that long-term recovery period. That's, in a lot of areas, still ongoing. If you think about Hurricane Katrina, and definitely just beginning for Superstorm Sandy. And we also like to think of our preparedness efforts as not only preparing our communities and our associates, but also by driving action into it. So it's not just here's information, but how do we actually go about moving to the next step? Oh, appreciate it. Before you hit play, real quick, I have two very short videos to show you, and the first one's going to illustrate a partnership we have with the state of Arkansas. It's going to be our First Lady, Ginger Beebe, and it's a partnership with the state of Arkansas, the Safe American Foundation, and this is a video that is played among many others on what we call checkout television. And the checkout TVs are just a television, just like it sounds, mounted up in each checkout lane. And it's another opportunity for us to partner and push preparedness messaging to our customers. And if you wouldn't mind playing this. That first video, if you can get past our Arkansas drawl, was just one example of many where we've partnered with state governments and the federal government to push that message. And this one alone just ran for the month of September, touched about 50,000 customers 18 and older. And this next video, which you won't have a chance to see here, but this one is actually a little bit different. This one is played in our monitors throughout our aisles, and it's triggered by NOAA weather warnings and watches. And what it will show you is it pushes out the preparedness message, hey, be alert, but also here's your suggested emergency supply kit and the items that you can take action. And remember, these are important, they're life safety issues. And that was in partnership with FEMA's preparedness arm, Ready. And between these types of messages, our PSAs in the last year, we've touched about 50 million adults 18 and older walking through our stores with this type of messaging, which is a huge impact and a huge value add when you look at these preparedness non-for-profits and public agencies as far as getting their message out to the public. And there's one last thing I just want to touch on, and it's interesting that kind of touches on what the National Grid was talking about earlier, is predictive modeling. And one of the neat things I think Walmart's doing in the retail space is using a program called Value at Risk. And what it does, it takes historical data, disaster data, both from impacts to our communities as well as how we responded historically to those disasters as a company. And it looks at operationally and environmental impacts and allows us to quantify that and look at how we make decisions during a crisis. Rather than looking at just the data that we have before us during that event, it allows us to better support our operations. And I know the pictures on the slide are really small, but what we're looking at here is basically looking at a heat map of increasing or decreasing impacts from a specific storm. And we look at everything from the changing of demographics and populations to better understand where people have moved historically through evacuation routes in different areas throughout that historical process of multiple disasters hitting similar areas. And we're able to better posture ourselves with resources and assets in those areas. And if can be a proactive response in, say, a hurricane, we're able to better support those areas before the storm hits. Now, this is just another slide of that. And what we look at specifically is, cost of impact to our facilities, merchandise, ebbs and flows of different merchandise specific to specific types of disasters. And right now we're just looking at hurricanes, winter storms, and wind events. But this program will grow and hopefully provide us much more predictive analysis. But with that,